Well, hello and welcome to the last day of 2022. This is New Year's Eve day, and I'm doing what everybody else is doing today. I'm thinking about my gardens. Actually, we're having beautiful weather right now here in the Ozarks. It's supposed to be 59 later today, although now I'm questioning whether it's going to climb or not because we're very overcast. And those piles are bunny manure piles and old straw that's going to be spread out here for some gardening beds. So yes, finally, after 2 years of living here, I can finally start thinking about gardening again. And you know, I've gardened on some level ever since I moved in, but I never really had sunny space until now. It took us a long time to be able to figure out where we would put veggie gardens. So now that I have the space all planned out, I have my gardens planned out, and I've been perusing through my magazines already for seed orders. In fact, I have a seed order ready to go. I'm going to start thinking about what can I do today to start getting ready for my garden. So let me show you what I've started. Okay, so we're all ready for the gardening year 2023. I'm excited. I know you're excited. So what is the first thing you want to do? So of course you want to figure out what plants you want. So I made up my list of what plants I want, and that way I know how much space I need for my raised bed garden. I'm actually going to do raised bed gardening. And then I watched my sun so that I know what hours of daylight I'm going to get and where. So I'm good to go as far as space and location and what plants to use. Now, what I have to decide is, do I want to start some plants indoors and get an early start on those plants? And most gardeners will say, yes, I love to plant my plants early and grow them from seed. Besides that, that's the best way to get like your heirloom and specialized plants, of course, is growing it from seed. And so it's so nice to start those seeds inside your house. So what do you use? What indeed? So most readily available, and I'm talking about the containers here, is your little peat pots. And I never bothered to worry about where the peat came from. When I first saw that on the market, I was all about the peat pots. I figured this was a fantastic medium. It holds a lot of water, very water retentive, and you can just bury the whole thing down in your soil, and you don't have to worry about, the shock of transplanting your little baby plants. The problem with peat is about the only place online that you're going to find that says peat is a sustainable, renewable resource is by the companies that actually mine the peat. So, and I didn't know this when I first started gardening, that a peat mining business will go into a bog that has been there for hundreds of years, dozens of years, and I don't know how long. As soon as I guess they find some acreage that has a bog on it, they zero in on that bog, and it doesn't matter about the ecosystem of the bog. They just drain the thing. They drain it so that they can get to that highly compressed carbon material that's underneath that little bit of water. They just destroy the whole area. And then they dig up the peat, and then it's allowed to sit in the sun, and it dries up, and it puts out this very intense carbon emission out of the peat. So I read somewhere where peat was even going to be discontinued in the United States, I believe, starting in 2024 for backyard gardeners, amateur gardeners. Professionals, I guess, farming industry will still be allowed to use peat. I don't know. So I don't want to use peat anyway, because it's just, it's oh my gosh, those bogs support so many variations of wildlife, and it just ruins the little ecosystem. So peat is completely out for me. I personally am not going to use peat. So there's cocoa coir. The pith from the coconut is stripped away from the shell, and then this is all compacted, and when you get it, you can add some water to it and it puffs way out. You all have seen cocoa coir, and it's pretty lightweight. It's easy to ship. It's fairly easily available. The problem with coco coir is you have to really purchase the higher quality coco coir, or you're going to get this salty stuff. And when I say salty, the coconuts themselves, the way that they're harvested is, and the places that they're grown, they just automatically are exposed to lots and lots and lots of salt water. And even the way they ship them and get them up the canals and stuff to the shipping yards, they're exposed to a lot of salt water. And so because this coco coir is absorbent, it absorbs a lot of those salts. So some universities have done studies and they put peat next to coco coir, and the plants that were in the peat did much, much better than the ones that were in the coco coir. And that's directly related, so these reports say, to the salt content of the coco coir. Now, you can get coco coir and you could rinse it out and get rid of that salt and put it somewhere. I can't do that because it would go straight into my pond. So I can't possibly do that. And then your little coco coir pot would be destroyed in that process anyway. If you want to use coco coir in your garden, you can buy the higher quality that's already had the salt removed from it, and then you get way less salt content. That's just way too much for me. I'm not going to do it. I'm looking for a container anyway, so it would have to be cheap, and the most inexpensive route for me would be very, very hard for me to go with coco coir just because of the salt content. So I'm not about to do that. So what about something like an egg carton? You can put some soil in there and you can plant some seeds in there. And believe me, I have tried this before. If you have managed to keep it moist and be able to do that, then you're a better gardener than me, because these things dry out on me so fast. I can't even begin to get anything to grow. And then when it does, it just dampens off because there's just not enough space in there. If you've ever pulled up one of your little tomato seedlings, there's like a root on it that long. Well, where's that root going to go? In here. It's not going to go anywhere. So that was out for me. And then I was reading people use eggshells. It's a great source of calcium. You can just plant your little plant in there and stick the whole thing in the ground. But again, where's the root going to grow? It's going to grow around, maybe. But is that really healthy for your seedling? Is that the best choice? I don't think so. So the best choice for me would be to recycle something. So I could use the little plastic pots that come from the store that your plants come in anyway. The problem with those for me is those have to be disinfected in between plantings. And so I completely do not use bleach anywhere on my property just because of the dioxin that is involved with bleach. It's kind of complicated to explain, but bleach allows dioxins to form, and dioxins are carcinogenic. And so I'm not rinsing off anything bleachy and have it land in my pond and then try to eat my fish. My fish would be belly up anyway. So those little plastic things are not going to work for me because I run the risk of spreading disease from them. I just can't get them disinfected enough. I need something that will go back into the earth, something that's sustainable, something that's biodegradable, and something that's not going to hurt my environment in the long run. So I was like, okay, well, paper. Okay, these cute little origami boxes that you can make, and they're so simple. And I'll put up a link to how to make these little origami boxes for you. And it does take a minute. It does, I will admit, it takes a minute. Once you get the hang of these, though, it goes very, very quickly, and you can make a lot of, you could really start to churn these out. However, this is white paper. White paper, again, contains bleach. And so I'm gardening for my health. I read an article, and oh my gosh, you guys would not believe this. You need to read this for yourselves. So like back in the 1950s, when people of that era were buying groceries and eating carrots and whatnot, they had 99% more vitamin A in a carrot than they do today. Like today you have 1%. Like you'd have to eat 100 carrots to get the amount of vitamin A that's in a carrot today as compared to back then. And that all comes from the soil. Every bit of that comes from right out of your soil. So that soil's been completely depleted. Yes, they can grow a carrot. It looks like a carrot. It kind of tastes like a carrot, but the nutritional value simply is not there anymore. And so that's why we garden, right? We want that flavor. We want that texture, and we want those nutrients. Well, what if I'm growing my carrot in a little bed of dioxins, carcinogenics, right? So you can't plant it in white paper. So that leaves newspaper. Finally, yes, something we can use, right? It comes to your house free. It's renewable. It's, you know, of course it comes from trees, and it's not bleached as much as like this paper. So the amount of those dioxins would be way, way less. So what about the ink? Well, back in the day, the inks were made of heavy metals and had lead in it. And then in our country anyway, they stopped using those petroleum-based inks. And so now most ink today on your freebie newspapers, most of it is soy-based. So, wow, it's free, it's renewable. You can plant the whole thing in the ground. It's just going to biodegrade, and it's not going to have a terribly bad impact on your environment. So my choice is going to be these cute little origami free newspaper boxes. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me. Love and light. Blessed be.